Hi, my name is Jesse Weens. I'm one of the co-authors, along with Catherine Cadden, of the Ongo book, Everyday Nonviolence. And I'm here with a friend today, Jeff Jocelyn, who's here to share a bit about his experience of working with the Ongo book. And I'll let Jeff introduce himself. Welcome, Jeff.
Hey, hi, Jesse. Glad to be with you today. And so you said my name, Jeff Joslin. I'm a group leader for Citizens Climate Lobby. That's a volunteer position, and we're a group that works for putting a fee on carbon to do something about climate change. And I've been involved in the group actively for about 4 years now.
Fantastic. And one of the reasons we're talking today is I understand recently you completed doing an Ongo group with some folks at Citizens Climate Lobby. And I'm wondering if you could just tell me first about how did this come about that this happened, creating this Ongo group with Citizens Climate Lobby?
Well, sure. I had been through your Ongo before there was a book with you several times. And every time I did it, I thought this would be really good for Citizens Climate Lobby because the values of Citizens Climate Lobby and Ongo and nonviolent communication are so aligned. And so when the book came out, I thought now's the time for me to get a group going. And I worked through the organization to get the word out, and we had just a really good turnout for a 3-month program. There were 14 of us that completed it.
And tell me a bit about the participants. Were they people part of your local chapter, or how did they find out about it, and who showed up?
It was a really good mix. We initially put the word out to group leaders, and so I think about half the group were group leaders, and we had a member or two of the staff, and our group were folks from Canada and throughout the United States, both coasts of Canada, and Maine to California to Florida. So it was a really diverse group. There was one person from my own group in the meeting, but we were pretty well spread out across the country in Canada.
Wow, that's really exciting.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'd love to hear more about how what was your experience of doing this with this group of people? How did it land for them, and what did you enjoy, or what did you learn from doing this experience?
Well, I think the group as a whole really loved it. We did a survey afterwards, and the surveys were just really touching to read. So I was really pleased with how everybody responded to Ongo. For me personally, it's always been a really good thing for me. It's kind of a continuation of other Ongos for me, but I've always found Ongo to be really helpful with self-empathy, seeing the things that kind of trip me up when it comes to communicating with other people or taking care of myself, and some excellent tools to use in our climate change meetings, both with members of Congress and our own groups.
Mm. When you think about what you heard back or witnessed in your experience of working with this longer group, what was your sense of what you or other participants got out of it that was contributing to the work of Citizens Climate Lobby for each of them?
Well, I think there's one little sentence or two that somebody wrote that kind of summed it up for me, if I could read it to you. They said, "I really like the balance between mindfulness, meditation techniques, and nonviolent communication practices. I very much appreciated the mix of daily practices, buddy meetups, and group meetings. This allowed me to go in depth with support. I really liked the focus on self-empathy, which was so important before we can move forward. Reflections on core beliefs was very worthwhile, as was thinking in terms of mourning and celebrating." And I think that person summed up what Ongo's meant for me over the course of doing it as well.
Wow, those are powerful words to hear, and I'm really touched hearing them. It feels like really, as one of the people who contributed to writing this book, I think it's really great to feel this kind of message sent as message received. To put out there something that I
I'm
hope
glad
that.
to hear that. I'm really glad to hear that because I'm just so grateful for what you and Catherine have done, not only with Ongo, but putting it in a book form that makes it just so accessible to groups like ours.
Mm. I'm wondering, is there anything else that you want to share about kind of the group experience of doing Ongo, um, so to share with others who might be watching this video right now?
Well, the one thing I'm kind of an organizer and a take charge type of person, and I was determined to try to do the book just like you said, which was it was a group process, not a leadership process. And so we had everyone take turns with the leadership of the group. People that had never led a group and felt uncomfortable about that led the group and just thoroughly enjoyed the experience. I'm trying to think it went really well in a way that I felt like if I wasn't there, things would have been fine and the group would have been able to function, just as well, which gives me hope that, going forwards, there'll be a lot of other people that kind of pick it up and say, I can do this too. We don't need somebody that's been through it to get it started.
Wow, that's really exciting. Again, from the standpoint of just really feeling that something about the intention we put into the book. I'm really happy to hear that the shared leadership is something that really came through.
Yeah, it did, definitely. Yeah. So I'm curious if you could just say a few words about Ongo, where it came from, and a little bit about it.
Well, the original Ongo, as you mentioned earlier, was an online program, 3 months, where Catherine and I supported people from around the world in their everyday practice of nonviolence. Things like people who wanted to really develop a daily practice of meditation, people who really wanted to strengthen their ability to communicate, using nonviolent communication, improve their relationships with themselves or with others in their life. And a big part of why we created that format and the way we created those practices was because we had been, at that time particularly, traveling around the world regularly, offering trainings in our work, which is sort of a integration or synthesis of a lot of those different practices like mindfulness, meditation, nonviolent communication, and others. And what we would find, when we travel is a couple of things. One is that we really wanted to support people to have a way to continue after we left. We know from our own experience that just showing up somewhere, offering a 1 day or even a 5-day training or a week-long training, it's not enough to have that become part of your life and embody it. It can give inspiration and deep learning and a lot of things, but it's not necessarily what makes someone develop an ongoing practice. And that's, Ongo is sort of short for ongoing. And so, we recognize that people really did need ongoing support and guidance to be able to develop this practice and have it become part of their life. And even more importantly than that they needed to be really trying it out in their everyday life, not just in a special container like a retreat where they sort of leave the context of their lives. That's important too, but I don't know that anyone can really develop this as a skill that you embody unless you're actually doing it, with yourself and with the people in your life on a regular basis. So that was sort of the kernel of part of why we created Ongo. And the other thing was we realized that, to do that, to be able to practice these things in your everyday life, we all need a lot of support. It's the rare person, I think, who has the discipline and the energy, the ability to just start, their own meditation practice that they keep up regularly or practice nonviolent communication regularly without working with a group that's supporting them or even one or two other people helping hold them accountable. And so the structure of Ongo we really set up, with the group practice, with the buddy practice, with the solo practices, we really set up to maximize all the supports that you can get, that we could possibly conceive of creating, at least that could go, that we could, share with others, that to help, increases. Well, I'll use this, this saying that when I was studying at the Zen monasteries, someone shared this saying with me. It's a teaching. I don't actually know from which teacher, but what they said was, enlightenment is an accident, and Zen meditation makes you accident prone. So I think, I kind of think of it that way, that, to be able to be nonviolence, to really embody, the compassion and wisdom that we all kind of get, we all sort of sense is there when we meditate or when we practice nonviolent communication. To actually be able to embody that regularly, there's an aspect of that which is outside of our control. There's only so much we can do to ensure that we bring that into our lives regularly. But there's quite a bit you can do to kind of increase the chances that you're able to show up that way in the moments which really count. And that's the accident prone part, So with Ongo, we try to create so many circumstances and conditions to sort of support people being have increased chances of being able to embody that wisdom, compassion, that wise action in their life. And that's really what it's about, that's why we created it.
I think that in thinking back on things people have said about it, they commented that the things that they were learning were practices that they wanted to continue beyond the Ongo. And I'm thinking of a situation. I was sitting in a congressman's office up in Washington, D.C. This isn't about practice, it's actual use. And one of the aides was saying something that everybody was having a hard time hearing. It wasn't what we wanted to hear. And, I was feeling fairly calm, I think part of due to the work that I'd done in Ongo. And I really just started trying to listen to what the underlying needs he was talking about. And when he got done, I said, no, what I'm hearing is you want, and said what I thought he was wanting. And, it worked. And I think it gave us all, one, a level of understanding, and two, gave us some ideas that we could do to help meet those needs that were all also consistent with what we wanted. So it was really a good practical experience of what I learned in Ongo.
I really appreciate hearing that. And that is actually, I feel like that's really a big piece of why we created it, is these practices, nonviolent communication and the Zen meditation practices and the other practices we've included in the book, we really feel strongly that these are kind of like our common wisdom, that as human beings, as people, we've all really inherited this work. It's come down through lots of different places, whether through a religion or through psychology, or come through a lot of different places. But we really owe it to ourselves to share this wisdom and to have it become common practice, commonly used. It's not something that should be relegated to just a few people who take workshops here and there, or people of a certain faith or religion. It's these are things that are simple, effective, and really enrich. Marshall Rosenberg, who created nonviolent communication, often said that the point of nonviolent communication is to make life more wonderful. And so these practices are really about making all of our lives more wonderful. And if we can have it become so common that, we can just use, everyday people can just use it in their interactions with their representatives, in advocating for public policy, or, with our relationships within our families, or in our workplaces, then I think we're all going to be a lot better off, especially in these times, which, within the US, there's so much polarization, and it seems that a lot of us have forgotten just these very simple things that we all can do, have the ability to do, to create connection and create the kind of life that I actually believe that we all want, not regardless of your place on the political spectrum, you know.
Right.
Yeah.
Very much so. Thank you. I appreciate that. So I was wondering if I'm looking at them setting up for lunch here where I'm sitting and thinking that we may be a little short of time. I was wondering if we could spend a minute or two talking about how somebody might go about getting an Ongo group started.
Sure. Well, the easiest thing I can think of to suggest is that first, I would want anyone who's thinking about starting an Ongo group to first pick up a copy of the book and make sure it's something they want to do. You know, there's no sense in starting something and then realizing partway through that it's not really what you wanted to do. So I think it's important that people pick up a copy of the book for themselves first. And there's a whole section in there towards the beginning that's about, you know, start an Ongo group. And that sort of lays out some general suggestions for how to go about doing it. Also, when you get the book, there's a page in there with information about the Ongo companion website, which is free for anyone who has the book. And on that website, there's a few further resources for people who want to start an Ongo group. At that point, I would just say, you know, there's two different ways to go about it. I mean, one is to connect with people in your local area who you think might be interested and start to talk with them about the book and engage them and see if it's something that they would be interested in joining you on. The other is like what you did, Jeff, and with Citizens Climate Lobby is, you know, maybe it doesn't have to be just people in your local area. Perhaps it could be people who are spread out geographically. But I'm looking forward to the notes that you and others in that group are creating for how to work with the group through online, because you can actually do group practices and things through things like technologies like Zoom, which are very cheap and easy to use. And Ongo originally was born as an online kind of online support mechanism, online training. So it's very easily translated back into a virtual gathering if needed. So I think there's a couple different ways to go about it, but the first is just to familiarize yourself with the book and make sure you yourself have the passion and excitement to do it, and then to connect with others who you think would enjoy joining you in that, I think.
Good, very good. I'd like to add that for Citizens Climate Lobby members, there's actually a page on CCL's community that's called Ongo Climate Peer Support, and that would be a place to go find out a little bit more about what the program was like for those that have taken it. And some of the people that have taken it have expressed a willingness to be supportive and others getting groups started. So that would be a good starting place as well for Citizens Climate Lobby members to go search it out.
Fantastic. And then for people who want general information about the book, there's a page we set up at zenvc.org. That's zenvc.org. And that's /Ongo book, ONGOBOOK. And there's a page there where you can take a look at samples, chapters from the book, see some of the people who've endorsed the book, and learn more about it.
Good. Sounds great. Thank you, Jesse.
Thank you, Jeff. It's been wonderful talking with you about your experience in using the Ongo book. I really hope that your experience might inspire other people who are excited to work with the book and possibly, you know, work with others in their communities. My hope is that just these very simple practices and tools of wisdom and compassion are things that we can put in the hands of as many ordinary people as possible.
I agree. And my deep appreciation to you and to Catherine for having put this together for us. Thank you.
Thank you. It's an honor.
Okay. Take care.
You too.